Welcome to the Jetlev Basic Flight Training video. The purpose of this video is to show you, the new pilot, how the Jetlev works and how to fly on your own within a few minutes of entering the water. The Jetlev is a revolutionary device that uses the water jets to provide personal jetpack flight above water. It is designed for high stability in forward flight, and its intuitive controls make it quite easy to learn. Although you would not fly any higher than 30 feet or above 25 miles per hour, there are risks involved in Jetlev flying, and we have established some eligibility requirements for safety reasons. You should be a good swimmer, in good health and physical condition, and you should be comfortable to have your face in the water from time to time. Pilots must be at least 18 years of age, body weight between 90 and 260 pounds, and height between 5 feet and 6 foot 6 inches. Some rental operators may have other restrictions. Your training will be organized into 3 sections: on-land training and fitting, on-water training with the instructor controlling the throttle remotely, and on-water practice with the pilot controlling the throttle. We will touch on safety issues at the end of the session. To get the most out of your Jetlev experience, feel free to pause or replay any section as often as you like. The 3 main components of the Jetlev system are the jetpack, hose assembly, and boat unit. The pilot wears the jetpack, which contains all the controls needed for controlled flight: control arms, throttle, start-stop switch, and safety lanyard. These are the thrust nozzles, where water shoots out to provide thrust in the opposite direction. They work exactly the same way as in a personal watercraft. Surprisingly, the nozzle pressures are roughly equivalent to municipal water pressures, the only difference being much higher flow rates. As you move the control arms together to point the thrust nozzles to the vertical position, all power is applied vertically and you do not move forward or backward. We call this the neutral position. Becoming familiar with this position is very important because it is at this position that you can always lift your body upright regardless of the power from the nozzles. If you move your arms downward from this position, the nozzles begin to swing rearward and generate forward force to push you forward, while upward force is reduced and cause you to descend. The throttle grip is used to change the power output of the engine from idle to full throttle. That in turn changes the power of the water being delivered through the hose assembly to your jetpack. For more power and greater height, twist to the right. Did you catch the rhyme there? Twist right for height. This will help you remember the correct direction to twist the throttle grip. For most precision in throttle control, hold the grip firmly against the palm and twist with your wrist, not with your fingers. As the pilot, you determine the amount of throttle to use in different situations. Each throttle position corresponds to a given amount of power, and you adjust the control arm positions to decide how much to use for upward force or altitude, and how much to use for forward force or speed. The closer the nozzles are to pointing straight down, the higher and slower you will fly. As a beginner, your goal is to maintain a steady forward speed at a moderate altitude. There are 2 types of turns you can perform on a Jetlev: the roll turn and the yaw turn. A roll turn is performed in forward flight and is achieved by shifting your body weight in the direction of the turn. A yaw turn is where you turn about your vertical axis while remaining in a more or less vertical body position, lowering the control arm on the side you want to go. The phrase, "where you go, that arm low," may help you to remember. You may also understand this as the way you turn the steering wheel to steer a car. Usually you start a turn with a yaw maneuver, then guide the turn with a roll maneuver. In this example, we can see the pilot applying yaw to start and using the roll to keep the turn balanced and in control. Now that you understand how the Jetlev works, let's get you fitted for flight training. The fitting instructor will outfit you with a personal flotation device. Set the length of the trapeze. Help you strap into the 5-point safety harness, and attach the safety lanyard to your right wrist. He or she will also demonstrate and have you exit from the 5-point safety harness. Practice exiting the harness. The fitting instructor will also have you practice releasing the lanyard key. Now that you've been fitted into the jetpack, let's take a closer look at the right-hand controls and familiarize you with the floating positions. Low taxi position, high taxi position, free flight, and landing. The right-hand controls consist of the throttle grip, start-stop button, and safety lanyard. At this time, the throttle grip should be rotated all the way to the left until it stops. This is the idle position. The Jetlev engine should always be started in the idle position, and it should stay in this position until the instructor asks you to take over the throttle. When instructed, push the start-stop button to start the engine. To stop the engine, press the same button again, or pull the safety lanyard off its post. Practice pulling the lanyard off its post. In an emergency, pull the lanyard off to stop the engine. The jetpack has natural flotation. After you enter the water, try to float leaning back with your face well above the water and get comfortable wearing the jetpack. This is the recommended floating position and is quite comfortable. Practice getting and staying in this position. If you try to float upright, the positive buoyancy of the jetpack and recommended wetsuit may tend to float you in a face-forward position. If you find yourself face down or tilting to one side, you can easily maneuver to the recommended floating position by either rolling to the side or leaning back, paddling backwards. Here's how you roll to the side. And here's how you lean back to maneuver into the recommended floating position. The low taxi position is where you are flying with the surface of the water at chest level. There are only two purposes to this exercise. One, to teach you, the student pilot, the correct nozzle angle in order to maintain the neutral position using low jet power. And two, as a safe, slow forward position during landing approach prior to touchdown. Your instructor will guide you to a designated area with sufficient depth. Check that your throttle grip has been turned all the way to the left to the idle position, and signal OK to the instructor to verify this. Your instructor will ask you to push the start-stop button at the bottom of the right-hand control grip. Once you start the engine, the hose will fill and you will rise and start moving. If you find yourself moving forward, raise the control arms up gradually until you stop moving forward. If you find yourself moving backwards, then lower the control arms gradually until you stop moving backwards. When you are not moving backwards or forwards, you are in the neutral position. Remember this because you will be using the neutral position again and again. Relax your legs and let them hang comfortably underneath you and use the jet nozzles to keep your balance. Take a minute to feel this balance before practicing slow, gradual movement of the control arms to go forward. Neutral. Short reverse. Neutral, then into forward again. You will find that slow forward speeds add to directional stability. Excessive forward speeds while in low taxi will tend to push your face closer to the water. Practice raising the control arms gradually to recover from excessive speed. Your instructor will move you to the next level when he or she feels you're ready. Some may be ready in less than a minute. Others may take longer. High taxi position is where the surface of the water is roughly at your knee level. The purpose of the high taxi is to allow you to practice forward flight and turns while adding directional stability by dragging your feet in the water. In this mode, you will learn how to maintain a steady speed and altitude for controlled flight and to make turns. You can choose to fly higher and slower, or lower and faster by very gently adjusting the control arms up and down. Avoid constantly making adjustments, or you will climb and descend excessively. Keep the control arms steady. To begin a right turn, think of the control grips as a steering wheel in a car. Lower the right-hand grip and raise the left one to start the turn, while leaning into the turn as you would ride a bicycle. Try a few wide left and right turns. It is important to become familiar with the turning in a high taxi because learning to turn in free flight will become more difficult due to lower directional stability. Typically, high taxi training lasts from 2 to 5 minutes. Free flight is when you fly with your feet out of the water. As the instructor raises you out of the water, you will notice that the weight of the hose has a tendency to tilt you backwards. To correct this, pull the control arms down slightly as in the neutral position exercise. When you are flying forward, slowly with your feet clearly out of the water, try to feel the trapeze with your feet and step toes first into it 1 foot at a time. To maintain stability, remember to mount the trapeze only while flying forward and do it without looking down. You can transfer some of your weight from the seat to the trapeze to increase comfort and stability. This helps compensate for the loss of stability when you no longer drag your feet in the water. Again, practice maintaining a steady speed and altitude with steady control arms. You should adjust the control arm angles in very small amounts, and you should neutralize the adjusting movement before you reach the desired altitude. Many beginners overshoot the desired altitude because they make the mistake of leveling out the adjusting movement a little too late. If you find yourself constantly climbing and descending for no apparent reason, you are probably making this mistake. Now practice your left and right turns again. After practicing this, your instructor will ask you to make a slow approach to a designated area to learn how to practice landing safely in open water. Landing is the most critical maneuver because it involves transitioning through free flight, high taxi, and low taxi positions to come to a complete and controlled stop in a designated area. When landing in shallow water near the shore, there are more hazards and your risk of injuries are somewhat higher for a beginner. This is why we train landings in deep water. As you approach for landing, the instructor will slowly reduce your power to a low taxi position. As you reach the landing point, raise the control arms in a slow, gradual upward movement to reach the neutral position, and the instructor will lower you for a simulated touchdown. Once you have landed, your instructor will ask you to check that the throttle grip is still turned all the way to the left idle position. Your instructor will now remotely hand over control of the throttle to you. When you are ready, slowly and smoothly turn the throttle grip to the right. For accurate throttle control, hold the grip firmly against your palm and twist with your wrist, not with your fingers. Practice your low taxi, high taxi, as well as your turns while making very smooth and gradual throttle and control arm adjustments. Try to raise yourself up to about 5 feet above the water. Mount the trapeze and practice free flight until you feel in control. Continue practicing your turns and smooth control adjustments. Practice landings in deep water by reducing throttle to descend slowly and approach the landing area in a low taxi position. At the landing spot, slowly raise the control arms to come to the neutral position while reducing the throttle to touchdown. For more precision, hold the grip firmly against your palm and turn the twist grip with your wrist, not with your fingers. When your session is finished, you will be asked by your instructor to return to the landing zone. Always approach shore in a low taxi position. When you reach the landing spot, slowly raise the control arms as you reduce the throttle to aim for a perfect 2-point upright landing. Your feet should touch down on the landing spot in chest-deep water. If you lose your footing and continue to glide forward, simply roll to your side and you will be traveling back first and come to a stop. During your flight, you may make a mistake and splash down or experience an unintentional landing. You may lose your orientation or your face may end up in the water. If this happens, push the start-stop button or pull the safety lanyard to cut the engine. Right yourself and face a direction away from shore and other boats towards deeper water. Return the throttle grip to idle and insert the safety lanyard on its post if necessary and restart the engine to continue your flight.